Good afternoon, and welcome back to another episode of Broker Talk, your weekly real estate show sharing with you the unvarnished truth about the real estate and the allied industries. I'm Larry Lawfer, your host, and I'm joined each week by my good friend Jim Lowenstern, principal and founder of Castles Unlimited International. Welcome aboard. Welcome back, Jim.
Nice to be here,
Each
Larry. And that music, as horrible as it is, it's starting to grow on me.
that's what I said. We need, yeah, we need each
No,
week.
it's actually a good song. I mean, that's only like 10 seconds of it, but it
Yeah,
actually we should play the whole song someday. We should just carve out a section of the show.
I think
Maybe take out a Wiener commercial and
I,
play it or something.
more on that later. But I think our audience would appreciate us less talking and more music. But each week here, we bring you a deep dive into an aspect of our industry. Working real estate professionals all have a niche that they work in, an area of business that they call their own. It can be expired or canceled. It can be new construction. It could be first time home buyers. It could be farm or ranch sales. It could be equestrian sales. It could be probate. Today's guest, Ron Mead, is from Tigard, Oregon. That's right south of Portland. And he is a probate specialist and used to train people for years in that. Hey, Ron, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, can you describe? Let's start at the simplest. What is probate and what is probate real estate?
Well, probate is in its simplest form. This is not a legal definition, but it merely means the dispersal of the assets of an estate and then the dispersal of the funds from those assets to the heirs. The reason I'm interested in it is because large percentage of the estates contain real property. And I found that when I started this back in 1996, when I did my first probate deal, I found that the sellers were very eager to sell. As a matter of fact, it's very interesting. The very first transaction I ever did was done with an attorney in Boston. He had inherited a condominium here in Portland, actually a suburb of Portland called Beaverton, and his sister had lived there, and there were no heirs to the estate, and he had inherited the property. He'd already made one trip from Boston to Portland, and he said it cost him about $2,500 just to fly out here, look at the property, and then fly back home. And quite frankly, he was ready to expedite anything he could do to get rid of the property. So we set up a deal very quickly. I sold the property and flipped it to a friend of mine who owns an auto repair shop. And that was my first taste into what I call probate real estate.
So, probate is not for everyone. There is a lot of work to finding the probate, to find the prospects in the probate. Talk about the paperwork and where you find this information, Ron, if you could.
Sure. Initially, when I first started, I actually went to the courthouse. I started going to the courthouse. I located what here in Oregon is called the probate file room, and they keep the records for probate there. Then I would check out as many records as I could. As a matter of fact, the first county I started working only permitted me to go there from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. I had 1 hour to work, so I had to be very expeditious about what I did. But the advantage was that county would let me go behind the counter and actually pull my own files. So I would get there at 7 o'clock, and like Larry said, I live about 20 miles south of Portland. So it was a 4:45 a.m. wake up to drive downtown to the city center where the courthouse is located, go to the file room, pull my files, go through a file quickly as possible, looking for a document called the petition for probate. Once I found that document, sometimes it would tell me on there whether there was real property involved. Sometimes there was not. And I can tell you how I would write down the information off of that file, just carry a yellow pad with me. And when I left at 8 o'clock, put all my files back up on back up in the proper filing area, and then came home. Then I needed to determine if that estate had real property. And luckily, I had a great relation. Here in Oregon, we close with title companies. Some states, I think maybe your state closes with attorneys. No,
Yes.
title companies.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, no, attorneys.
attorneys. Well, I had a great relationship with a title company that I'd done several transactions with, and I went down and asked them if there was any way I could access county tax records, because that's where I can find out if that person who died had real property. And they said, sure, they're a business just like all of us are, and my title company had a customer service representative, and she gave me access to their website, and so I could quickly go through maybe 20 estates in half an hour, find out those that had real property, because that's the only ones I'm interested in. I've seen other people that said, well, you could make money off of selling the personal property out of a state, and you can, but it's like a huge garage sale, and I don't like garage sales, so I never did that.
Other
At
people's
times I would get properties with a great deal of personal property in them, and I sold them in bulk.
right.
Say, here, give me $3,000 and have it out by Friday. So once I found they had real property, then I would mail them a letter, and some people would respond. If I get a phone number, I'd follow up with a phone call, and it's a sorting process. Now, uh, as you mentioned, Larry, I started teaching this in 2004, and I actually wrote a book called 31 Days to Profits in Probate Real Estate. And I think you were a buyer, as a matter of fact, of one of my books.
I was an early adopter.
Early adopter. Good. Thank you very much. My wife and I love you.
Larry, I have to interrupt. This is a first. So of course I'm not supposed to look at my phone during the show, but this is literally kind of a first. I've got someone writing me, and they say, Anna and I are waiting. Is there a new Zoom that starts at 3 o'clock? I think they're talking about this show.
Yeah.
So where do they see? Do they see this show live?
Yeah. Yeah. Go to Broker Talk.
Broker Talk. I've heard of that. Broker Dash Talk, right?
Yeah. Broker Talk.
.com.
.com.
Okay, little plug there. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And
Just
let me
continue on. Just make
Yeah,
sure I'm not even here.
it's rolling live right now. So all is good. Um, so Ron, there are more than 740 uh, probate offices or counties across the U.S. So there's a variety of different rules and regulations in our area, in my area, Norfolk County, Middlesex County, Suffolk County. These are the Boston and the surrounding areas.
Right.
Each one of those towns has a different way of dealing with it. So you do have to go and you have to use an ancient computer. They only have a couple of them. You start them by putting a hand crank in there and doing it, but that takes an incredible amount of time to find the information that you're looking for. Then you give that information to the clerk, and the clerk hands you the file. Then you get the file and you open it, and you're looking for, you're calling it real property. We're looking for a house. We're looking for, the deceased person left a house, and who is their executors.
Or a hotel or a shopping center.
Mhm.
We don't just stop at houses.
I always stopped at houses because I don't do that commercial part.
What about a condo?
Yeah, well, condo, yeah. But yes, in our area, our average price point is over $1 million, Ron. So
Yeah.
even the condos are well worth something. But one of the reasons why this is good is because it does take a lot of work, and a lot of agents won't do that because
No.
it's work. It's actual. You've got to go and study, and then you send it off.
You have to get up early in the morning.
Well, yeah, but
You got to drive.
exactly.
You got to park.
Exactly. There are some people that think you can do this online. Nowhere in Massachusetts can you get the up-to-date information. But Ron, one of the questions I always wanted to ask you, because someone has died and you're sending them a letter, and you're of course are being empathetic to their loss, but then you're also following it up with it as empathetically as you can. Hey, you might want to get rid of your property. I can help you with that. How long after the person dies were you sending out the letters?
As soon as I
Immediately.
get the information.
Of course,
And I,
because somebody
excuse me,
will do it before you, and you're not going to get the business.
let me address this online access to records because I think it was in 2009 or 2010. I had a company in Texas contact me, and they wanted to know if I would endorse their product. They claimed that they could they could access probate files online and then sell you a subscription service. So the first thing I did was I gave them the 3 metro counties around Portland, and I said, give me your latest probate records there. Well, when I got that, the first thing they gave me was about a year old. Everything was from 11 to 2 years old, 11 months to 2 years old. And I wrote them back and I said, I can't deal with that. When I get my records, because I was going to the courthouse 5 days a week when I was at full strength on this. So I was getting information every day. And I just don't think like you said, there's a lot of counties and each county works differently. And my experience has been counties are looking for ways to contract work, not expand work. And if they had to have a person sit at a computer and data entry all probate files every day, especially in a large population area like where you folks live, that would cost a lot of money. And counties are not flush with money. They're not looking to do that. So I have yet to see, I can't say there isn't anybody, but I'm yet to see anybody that can give me good data online.
Right.
So now let me address the issue because I get this a lot. Going to the courthouse is too much work. Well, that depends, you know? If you could make $500,000 a year because you had to get up at 4:45 every morning, 5 days a week, would you do it? Some people would say yes, some people say no. I don't know what the needs of the individual investor are. So that you have to determine. I always thought by it being hard to do, it was an asset for me because I've always said, I'll work harder than you will. And I went to the courthouse every day,
Sure.
4:45 a.m. The alarm went off, cup of coffee, in the shower, out the door, and down to the courthouse. But
I have to interrupt. So Larry, they're not. I actually went to the website. We're not on. We're not live. Is there a Facebook link or
Yeah.
any other?
Larry Lawfer at YouTube. How come
Larry
you don't know
Lawfer.
this stuff? This is our 120th
Larry Lawfer
show.
YouTube.
Yeah, Larry Lawfer. Go to YouTube and put in my name. Jeez.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wrote YouTube. Okay. Listen,
Anyway,
I'm just trying to help.
It's good to have an audience.
I'm just trying to help.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Ron, wouldn't it just be easier to go to the obituaries because they're all there?
No.
No, you can't get any information out of obituaries.
Other than the person who died.
But you've got to find the petition for probate.
Yeah.
I mean, without that, you can't go anywhere. And that's filed at the document, whatever they call the file room, the probate room, whatever it is, the courthouse.
And what's going to be on the petition for probate? Is it going to have a law office with a phone number, or
it could be?
Could be a variety of those
Sometimes
things.
there are attorneys, and if
are
there's
you usually contacting through the mail or phone,
that's
or
where I'm going.
or is it even email these days?
I never got email addresses.
No, a personal letter, and one of the things I mentioned in the book is I wouldn't bought special stationery because I didn't want it to be just a number 10 envelope like everybody else was getting. I was trying to do something to make my letter stand out. And what I finally did was about halfway through, I went to the office supply store and I had a little stamp made that said probate information. And I stamped that on the outside of the envelope. And I can bet you $100 that everybody who got that envelope opened it because it said probate information on the outside.
Exactly.
So, the obituary doesn't work. You need to see the file, and you need to make sure. A lot of people don't understand that you have to be dealing with the person who has the authority to sell the estate.
Right.
Exactly.
If you don't, you're going to spin your wheels.
No, I'm only asking because I've heard stories. I know brokers. I think think my ex-wife actually went to a shiva. She literally knocked on the door, you know, Jewish wake.
Hmm.
She got the listing, you know,
Sure.
and I've heard of, you know, families debating who should we give it to. Should we give it to that pushy broker that came to the wake asking for the listing, or somebody
Boy,
else?
I
And
would never do that.
I know I'm not
Yeah,
saying it's in good taste,
yeah.
but then again, Ron knows that it's the person who speaks up first usually who gets it.
Right.
I sent letters. I did use your probate. I went out and got that same stamp, and they were opened most of the time. But in the documents, Jim, what you get is the executor, and you get a whole list of the people and where they live, because it's a legal document, and they need to send mail to those legal documents. So you get their name and their address. You can often figure out if they're blood relative, if they're younger. We have the capacity to find phone numbers. I've never bought one of those programs where I can find emails, but I think you have one of those. Um, but
I have not emails, it's cell phones,
cell
so you can
phones.
you can
Yeah,
text.
yeah. But the thing is, you have to be somewhat empathetic, because these people have lost someone in their life, and I think the letter that you wrote and shared with people like me, Ron, was a very touching letter. It wasn't pushy. It was providing them information, and that's really, I mean, many agents. There are pushy agents. I have never been one of them. I don't like them myself. I don't want to be sold. I don't think anybody wants to be sold. They want a reason to buy.
Well, I always regarded myself as providing a service. I have bought every package that I could ever find online from other people who were describing how to do exactly what I do, just to see what they recommend. And some of them recommended 7 follow-up letters because they've been to a sales course and heard that
Yeah,
nobody reacts on everything till the 7th contact. And I was never comfortable with that. I'm very empathetic to the fragile emotional state that the air is generally in, and I don't want to compound that. But if
right.
they know that there's somebody out there that can help them, and all they have to do is pick up the phone and call, um, that's what worked for me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hey, we'll be back in a moment. We're going to take a quick break here for an ad.
When you are searching for a new home, you want to be working with a realtor with years of experience, a professional with intimate knowledge of the communities that you are considering moving to, and someone who really wants to represent you as a buyer in what is probably the largest investment you will ever make in your lifetime. The realtors at Castles Unlimited want to be your choice when you are ready to make your next move. Please visit us at castlesunlimited.com or call us anytime at 800-967-3561. The realtors at Castles Unlimited are here to help your next purchase, lease, or sale of any real estate the easiest decision you've ever made. Start your search anytime, 24/7 at castlesunlimited.com.
And
And we're back. And so, Ron, um, it's really this is prospecting. You are finding prospects, and you're finding prospects not by sending Zillow your money and them sending you bad leads. You're actually doing the work and helping people that might need help. I always found the holy grail was um, children. Um, we live in this area. Children who lived in like Colorado or California or Florida, and their parents, their big house in here in Newton or Wellesley or Weston was sitting empty now because the parents were passed on. These are the people who really wanted. They didn't pay into the house, so they're happy to make a deal and get the cash done and make it simpler for them. So it is an actual service you're providing.
Right. Yeah, your best prospects are if the personal representative lives out of town. The example I gave to you, the first deal I ever did with the attorney in Boston, that's a perfect example. It was what 4,000 miles of travel to get here, and each time was a pretty big expense, and there wasn't a lot of money in it. So yes, you're exactly right that Larry, the prospects that live out of town, and maybe 1,000 or 2,000, or say that the kids live on the West Coast and the house is on the East Coast. that's a much better lead because they're going to have difficulty. If they live just across the street or down, a couple miles away, they can journey take care of it themselves, or at least willing to. So that's a good tip. Better leads are if the personal representative lives out of town.
And the worst is if one of the children is living in the house.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, well, what is that person going to do then? You sell the house out from under them. If you're an adult living with your parents, there's probably a real reason for that.
Or it could have your surviving spouse live in the house too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you kind of have to be delicate. You do one of the things you have to deal with are emotional errors.
Yes,
I've had lots of people, not lots, but maybe 20 or 30 times. I've had people yell at me for being insensitive and call me a bottom feeder, etc. And I just deal with that. I'm saying, I'm sorry, that's not my intent. My intent was to let you know my service is available. Doesn't sound like you need me. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So on a percentage basis, just so the agents out there that are going to think that this is what they want to do, on a percentage basis, how many times do people say, "Oh, I'm so glad you called"?
I can answer that.
Glad you called?
Yeah, anybody answer.
I can answer that. More often than when I'm calling expired and canceled. More often they're appreciative with probate, especially with the way that Ron approached it. That was my experience.
So 50% of the time, you'd say?
Yeah, I didn't get 50% response. I got something like 25-30% response, me personally. And of that 20-30%, I ended up with probably 15%. Probably half of them did business with me. My first one was a person who lived in Colorado and his aunt lived here. He was the only survivor of that. So he came and I actually physically met with him. And I went in there after with your letter, and your letter was saying, let me buy the property from you. And it really wasn't a straight, well, for me at that point, it wasn't a straight purchase. I was going to buy first right of refusal, get some time, and then sell it, and make the difference. But he said, well, I've also been contacted by real estate agents, and what should I do about that? And I went like this.
One hat off, one hat on.
Hat. And he laughed, but I got the listing for it.
Well, I've taught that for real estate agents, this is a great prospecting tool. As a matter of fact, I had gotten my broker's license earlier in my career, and even though you do not have to have a real estate license to work in probate, I had kept it until it became, I can't remember the year, but finally I canceled my license because people assumed I knew much more than I did, and I didn't want that stigma. And I'm sure Massachusetts, same way as Oregon, the Real Estate Commission requires you to put so much documentation and so much testimony on any correspondence that it became derogatory. So I actually canceled it. But I think I was telling you the story, Larry. Oftentimes, if I visited someone and they said they didn't want to do business, I'd kind of get to the door and I would say, let me ask you a question, Mr. Smith. Do you have a probate real estate agent? And invariably, the answer would be, no, I don't. And I'd say, well, would you mind if I recommended one to you? And, oh, no, do you have somebody in mind? And because I didn't want to work as an agent, also I still have my license, I would then call a buddy of mine and I would give him the referral and he'd work the listing and do what he could do. But and I would emphasize too, Larry, I don't know that I would want to do this full time today, 2021. It's very cyclical. And right now we're definitely in a seller's market. So it's very difficult. People read the news just like you and I do, and they know that they can get top dollar for properties. So it's very difficult to get a discounted property. And that's why in 2017, that was the last time I did a probate transaction. You called and asked me if I would do this Zoom meeting with you today. I said I'd be happy to, but I want to be honest with everybody. I'm not highly promoting probate as an excellent opportunity. It's a great way to get some listings. And then you said that a lot of your viewers are real estate agents, so I really advocate that. But it became too much work for me, and I was working online at that point, and so I kind of switched hats, and I work online now.
Sure.
So the market will change. So
Sure,
just
absolutely.
file it in the back of your mind someday when the market is slow. Could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years from now. The time will come
Right.
when it will be a little tougher to sell a house.
This
Happens.
this particular time during COVID and with and it's across the country, but specifically here, it is a time that listing agents are going to call the good old days. But if you're a
Yeah,
buyer's agent, it's hell
yeah,
because of all the competition. But
right,
um, but still, there are ways to get deals done if you follow best practices. And that's what we like to talk about here at Broker Talk, is give people an
sure,
opportunity to understand a little bit more of what they could do. And maybe, if you're a person who likes to do research and doesn't want to make cold calls, this is a way to get into this business um, when it's not so much a seller's market as it is right now.
right.
But Ron, you said that you were going to offer something to our audience specifically. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, once it became very difficult to use my strategy as I printed in my book, and that was in 2017, I decided to take my sales page down. I owned a URL called buyprobateproperty.com, and I took it down really because I felt it was disingenuous in some ways. I really believe that integrity is something that kind of gets lost on the internet, and I didn't want to be part of that crowd. And since I didn't feel that everything I had written, I wrote that book in 2004, and now it's 2017. The landscape had changed tremendously. One of the things that happened, and you alluded to it earlier, Larry, is that I had a very ease of getting into the probate file rooms. And as we went through increasing security, even increasing privacy issues, I found the courthouses were doing things to block my entry. And so, and some are even charging. I know some counties charge $1 a lookup. Well, for a starting investor to be able to, maybe $1 a lookup and you do 25 lookups a day, that might be prohibitive. So I actually took the website down. So I don't have any published copies. I never did publish. I'm a self-published. I did it myself. But I do have some digital files. I have it on file on our computer. The book is. So if anybody would want to buy the book, they could certainly contact me, and I'll sell them a digital copy of that book. And they're welcome to call me on my cell phone. The area code is 503-880-3754. 503-880-3754. Or you could email me at Ron's office at ronmead.com. And that's MEAD, not MEADE. So Ron's office.
Warm up the mimeograph machine, Ron. Crank those books out.
No, he's selling the digital.
Oh,
yeah. I've got we interesting story. We had a one weekend where we did a promotion with that book, and I'm gonna say it was about 2008, and we had actually laid everything out, and I had done some other adjunct information with it, and we got something like 700 orders in like 2 days.
Wow.
So I quickly went to the garage and got out some banquet tables and contacted a couple of high school kids that I knew and had to come over, because we had to start. We had a binding machine and we had a laser printer. We did
when you say you self-published, you really self-published.
Sure I did.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I'm not sure.
God.
There's no reason not to.
So that was no joke. The mimeograph machine was cranking them out.
Well, kind of. Yeah, I had a laser printer, a little bit of an advance. But no, I learned my lesson early on. I went to a conference in Chicago and they asked me to speak about what I did, and I did. And I've been doing this 7 months. And two ladies sitting right behind me just about had a heart attack because they had 20,000 copies of a book that they had written sitting in their garage. They didn't self-publish. They went through a publisher and they were guaranteed a small percentage, where I got 100% of my revenue. So I learned my lesson very quickly. I never did that.
Lulu.com.
I beg your pardon?
Just put it in the back of your mind. I think Amazon does it too, but Lulu, LULU.com.
Remember
So
when I started,
you can
2004.
take your digital file. They'll give you a perfect bound book.
2004.
Whatever size you want.
Jim doesn't
Yeah, there's
listen
a
real
lot of
well.
advances that have been made now that I
No,
would do.
no, I'm listening, but I'm just trying to help Ron out. He doesn't,
Yeah.
because this show he may have to come up with another 700 books. I'm going to make it easier.
I hope so. I hope you have that many books that people ask for. But
Ron, you're the probate king, and I'm sure this show will attract a lot of attention.
we really I appreciate you, and I'll tell you, Ron, I miss your Wednesday Wisdom podcast, or was it Wisdom Wednesday?
Wisdom Wednesdays.
Wisdom Wednesdays.
I came up with that idea just to provide information about it. I think we were talking earlier, Larry, one day it was about any kind of topic, and one day I talked about the advantages of apple cider vinegar and the things you could do with it, and Wisdom Wednesday was just some of the things. People always talked about the things that I'd accumulated because I'm older than my average buyer, and so I would talk about things that I knew, and that with no sales pitch or anything in them, and that became it became easy to develop a good relationship with my viewers. And interestingly, since I stopped, I probably had more comments about that than anything I actively did. The hundreds of thousands of dollars I spent with Google AdWords and other promotions online, Wisdom Wednesday was the one thing that stuck out. So that's something that any of your people viewing could also set up. To today's technology, it's much easier to do than what I was doing back.
But you have to be interesting, and you have to be open, and you have to be giving wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not nobody needs to listen to. Although all of these Karen videos seem to be getting lots of play, but male or female Karens, it's like, please, I'd rather watch something that shared some information that could make my life better, not something that annoys me.
Right.
So anyway, we've wasted another great half hour here finding out all kinds of great
this was informative. There was no waste of time here.
Yeah, and Ron.
And we now know that you go to broker-talk.com and you can watch the show live at 3:00 every Thursday, and you can text Jim with your questions.
There you go. If you know Jim, or text me.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again.
Thank you, Ron.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Great show.
Always willing to
See you next week.
See you next week.
Thursday at 3.
Broker-talk.com.